I love to talk about digital technology and the changes that are undergoing our virtual assistant industry, which is why we are going to deep dive into today into how to thrive as a virtual assistant in the age of AI. In today's session, we're going to cover 5 major aspects of working in and with AI. First, we're going to demystify it a little bit and speak about what AI really is and also what it isn't. Next, we'll address some common fears and have an honest discussion about job security in the age of AI. And immediately after, we're going to flip the script. Instead of looking at AI as our competitor, we're going to look at it as our own personal assistants. As the saying goes, AI might not replace you, but another assistant using AI probably will. No presentation would be complete if we didn't talk about building essential skills to make you a better, more efficient person using AI, but also how to build up your human skills that AI can never replicate. And finally, we're going to talk about how you can package AI services as part of your virtual assistant business to make you more competitive. Let's start by talking about what AI is and what it's not. I still speak to people who think that AI is a living, breathing, thinking entity. So I want to start by dispelling some myths. Even though AI might seem alive, it's just math. The internet is built on a systems of ones and zeros, which stands for yes and no. AI is no different. In fact, they are just probability machines. They create sentences that resemble human language, and it's all based on math and the text that it is trained from. And the reason that we want to talk about this is because since AI is built on data, patterns, and math, it lacks things that you and I have, like common sense, emotions, and even cultural understandings. These are our advantages and things that AI can never truly understand. Most importantly, I want to remind everybody that AI can also be wrong. Let's take a very simple example. Since AI learns from the mountain of text that it reads, it can read misinformation and take that as fact. If a system reads 1,000 different articles that state the capital of Australia is Sydney, it has no idea that the capital is actually Canberra because it cannot think. It doesn't actually know what the capital is. It is guessing its next most plausible word based on its training data. We'll talk a little more later about why it's so important and how we can use its errors to work to your advantage. Before we move on, let's address some major fears. In the past few months, there have been numerous articles in the news and announcements from big tech CEOs that they believe AI will replace a large portion of the population. That scared everybody, including myself, until there have been 2 recent examples where big companies laid off people, tried to replace them with AI, and then ended up hiring all those people back. The first is Klarna. It's a Swedish buy now, pay later company. They laid off 700 people, expecting to replace them with AI, only to find out that the AI wasn't working properly. And all of those people were hired back. That's why I highlighted this article, which was recently published earlier this month from CNET, or Computer Network. The article goes on to talk about translation services, something that seems like an easy target for AI. However, they found that certain types of translators, like medical, for example, need to understand actual cultural nuances. They need to know medical terminology, and they need to know slang to communicate properly to patients. Plus, language is dynamic. It is always changing. And if AI isn't trained on those updates, it's not going to know what the latest changes are. But a good translator who's up on language trends hopefully will. So I want to shift our perspective from fear to opportunity. Think of AI like your junior assistant. Congratulations, everyone. You've just hired your first assistant to work for you and with you. Now, the best thing about AI, for sure, is that it works 24/7. Unlike a human, it does not get tired, it does not get sick, it does not need vacation days. It also really excels at boring tasks that you hate to do. Considering that AI is going to be your new junior assistant, that means you are the manager. You get to assign tasks, you get to check its work, you get to make it better by adding your own human expertise, and you get to make strategic decisions. Here's another example. I've recently started using AI to search for flights for my clients who do a lot of business travel. I can work on other tasks while the AI is working in the background on finding those specific flights. Then, when I get the results, I get to use my best strategic thinking, pick the flights that fit my client's schedule the best, and present them with the options. And the best part is that, again, they don't know how you found these flights. It could be manually, it could be with AI. As long as these flights exist, which I highly recommend you do a quick search to make sure that these are, in fact, real routes, you get to make the final decisions, and they are happy with the completed task. So speaking of junior assistants, so far we've talked about AI like it's just one singular thing. But actually, there are thousands of AI tools that all serve different purposes. And I think the hardest thing about AI right now is that it is a rapidly changing space. In fact, as I started to make this presentation, certain tools like Nano Banana, which is a graphics tool made by Google, hadn't even been released yet. And we're talking days. So the best thing that you can do in order to be a great VA who really understands AI systems is to remain curious and keep on top of trends. See what new tools are being introduced and don't just read about them, go try them. But I don't just want to tell you to try things. I'm going to give you a few examples of some great tools that I think should be on everybody's toolkit. And the first trend that is really taking off right now are super agents. And these are so much more than just LLMs like Gemini and ChatGPT that we've been used to. Think of super agents like an AI robot that hires other AI robots to get your tasks done. It is autonomous, which is a huge leap forward from things like ChatGPT because it can make decisions on its own about how best to answer a prompt. Now that is pretty crazy. I feel like we've taken a massive leap in the timeline of AI because we have been using LLMs, which traditionally are prompt generators. They give you the next most plausible word, and we've leapt practically to the moon where we now have super agents. For example, ChatGPT has their own agent, and when using agent mode, you can connect ChatGPT to things like your email inbox, your calendar, Canva for graphics, Slack for notifications, even your Google Drive and all of your files. But not all super agents are designed to do the same thing. There's a great super agent called GenSpark, which is meant to help you learn things quickly. Here's how it works. You ask GenSpark a question, and instead of just giving you a paragraph of text like traditional LLMs, it creates a custom-made Spark page. This is a structured document with summaries, headings, bullet points, and even, in some cases, videos to help explain a topic. It is essentially designed to help you learn something new very, very quickly. So GenSpark might be a good option for you if you're trying to learn a new skill or if a client has given you a task that you have zero clue how to do. Similarly, we have Skywork. This is a brand new super agent that's been designed specifically for business. So imagine an AI that can read through all of your clients' documents, emails, data, numbers, and then can actually do things with that data. For example, let's say your client owns a product business where they sell products directly to consumers. You could ask Skywork to find the 5 most urgent customer complaints from last week and draft replies, and it would do it in seconds. And then, of course, there's ChatGPT Agent, which essentially lets you build your own mini AI for whatever purpose. You could literally build one agent that's dedicated to travel tasks for your client, and you could build a separate agent to help you debug code if you are working on a client's website. Super agents are super cool. And since they're so new, keep your eye on that space because I guarantee they're going to get better and smarter and faster as time goes on. But we would be remiss if we didn't talk about LLMs because I think traditional LLMs still have their place in our business. So just a reminder, LLMs are different than agents because agents are autonomous. They can make their own decisions on how to best produce a task, whereas LLMs will give you language outputs based on statistically what sounds the best. Now, ChatGPT, I now consider the jack of all trades. This means it is a very well-rounded, knowledgeable, enthusiastic, and pretty creative language model. It's particularly great for generating ideas, for brainstorming, and it usually has a friendly and engaging tone. Gemini is another great service to check out. And Gemini is owned by Google, which I think makes it a great researcher because it has ties to Google's vast resources online. It's very practical. It's great at finding and breaking down information for you. And then comes Claude. In my mind, Claude is a Frenchman wearing his beret and typing on a typewriter. That's the silliest way to personify AI, but Claude is a great writer. Now, unlike Gemini and ChatGPT, it is less conversational and it is way more focused on producing high-quality writing. In fact, it is excellent at understanding human nuances, and it's really good at avoiding harmful or biased outputs. Let's move on to the research toolkit, because research is one of those things that clients love to delegate. My 3 favorite research-specific tools on the market right now are NotebookLM, which is also owned by Google. But this AI is designed specifically to work with documents that you give to it. Now, this is a huge difference because instead of searching random URLs, it's best suited if you upload things like your own notes, articles, research papers, and then that notebook becomes an expert on the data that you're feeding it. The coolest thing about this is that you can actually interact with your own data. You can ask questions of it. You can chat with it. You can have it generate new ideas and brainstorms based only on the resources that you're giving it. Now, if you find that you are in fact in need of getting online for some research, Perplexity is an excellent option. This is an amazing researcher because it goes online, consults the web, and then delivers an incredibly well-sourced summary with direct links of where it found the information. Not to mention, I think it has one of the lowest percentages of hallucinations because it's pulling actual details with actual cited sources. And last but not least, we have kind of an interesting newbie to the market, and this is NoteGPT, which I like to think of this as your study buddy. So this tool basically has one job. You give it a link to either a video or an online course, a webinar, an article. You could even upload this video to NoteGPT and it will summarize key points for you. It can also generate notes, transcripts, even flashcards, which saves you a lot of time because you don't have to rewatch a video or reread everything to refresh your memory. And finally, let's move on to 3 design tools that I think are really helpful. The first is the newest one, Nano Banana, and I swear this thing just broke the internet. You don't need any editing skills at all to use Nano Banana. So the model is so different from other graphic services right now, and that's because it understands natural human language. No matter how complicated or simple or lengthy or short your prompt is to Nano Banana, it will perform an incredibly fast, real-time edit, and you will get results almost instantly. The results also don't require any Adobe Photoshop or Lightroom or even any additional tools to make edits and changes. Whether you're creating social media graphics for your own business or you're creating social media graphics for a client, this is a really great tool to create fast, ultra realistic looking photos that don't require you to be a super duper prompt engineer. And similarly, VO3 is another fairly new system that came out. VO3 was created by Google, and where Nano Banana creates images, VO3 creates stunning videos. You could describe virtually any scene you want, like a drone shot of a knight riding a horse on Mars, and it will create a video based exactly on that description. And last but not least, we have Canva's Magic Design. So in Magic Design, you either provide it with an image that already exists, or you can enter a text prompt. It could be as silly as create a birthday party invitation for my dog, and it will automatically generate a professionally designed template for you, after which then you can continue to customize it. I think there's real opportunity for us to become better, faster, more efficient, more creative assistants thanks to these AI tools. I like to think of AI like a paintbrush. A paintbrush in and of itself is not a creative tool. It is just a handle and some bristles. It is actually the painter who uses the tool and creates something beautiful. And it is the same with AI. AI is a tool, and we are the artist, where we pick and choose which tools work best for our desired outcomes. Now, beyond the specific tools that I think are really helpful for our industry, you might now be asking yourself, how the heck do I get better at using these tools? And that's a super valid question. And the first thing you'll want to do is practice, because like any skill, practice makes perfect. One of the best things you can practice is determining which AI tool is appropriate for the task. As we've just seen on the previous slide, not every AI tool is meant to do the same thing or serve the same purpose. And speaking of critical thinking, this is probably the most important part of this slide. Screenshot it, copy it down on a note, whatever you have to do. These 4 questions are going to help you become one of the best virtual assistants using AI. The first question you always want to ask yourself when you're trying to determine which tool to use is, what are you even trying to achieve? Because if you're trying to get a realistic video, you're not going to get that by entering a prompt into Perplexity. If you're trying to learn something quickly on a custom Spark page, you're not going to get that from Claude, who's a more conversational writer. A similar question you can ask yourself is, what is the best way to do this task? Now, the last 2 questions, I don't necessarily have answers for you, but they are equally as important, and your answers are going to be determined by your thinking, your client's needs, your own needs. But one of the best questions I think we need to be asking ourselves is, how do you determine which AI responses are good or good enough or just plain trash? Again, not all answers that you get from AI agents or LLMs are going to be great. They might be wrong. So how are you going to determine if those things are good enough to send to your client? How do you decide when to stop? How do you decide when to keep asking questions before you get your desired outcome? Last but not least, how do you determine what a successful prompt is? And this question is a little abstract, but it's one of my most favorite. And I think it's a question that everybody needs to be asking themselves. For me personally, one of my favorite frameworks to determine if my prompt was good or not is, did I get the results that I actually wanted? AKA, did the AI give me something that I can actually use? Did my prompt have enough specificity and context? Because including details and prompts often lead to way more personalized and useful outputs. Now, the third best thing that you can do to make sure you are upskilling with AI is to apply your own expertise, because any of the AI tools we've talked about are general. The outputs are only as valuable as the context that you provide it with. So if you are an expert at a particular niche, if you're an expert at web design, if you're an expert at social media, if you're an expert at it could be even as specific as thumbnail designs for YouTube, you can provide additional context to the AI tools to make your outputs that much more powerful. And it can't do that unless you are using your own expertise and creativity to get the better answers. And last but not least, improving your prompts. This kind of goes hand in hand with practice. So keeping notes of things that you find that work really well can be really helpful. And eventually you will have your very own custom-made prompt library. You can also use follow-up prompts. Before copying and pasting it or presenting it to a client, you could ask questions like, does this make sense? How does this make sense? Explain it to me from a different point of view. Explain it to me like I am skeptical of this output. You can continually refine the outputs just based on you having a conversation with the AI itself. Now, having said all that about how to achieve great outputs and what tools to use, there are always inevitably going to be things that AI just cannot do. It cannot replace our superpowers, most importantly, critical thinking and strategy. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're a social media manager and a client asks you to grow their TikTok page. Yes, you could go directly to one of the AI tools we've discussed today and brainstorm ideas. But what it can't do is really come up with a strategy that fits your client's business best. And that's where you come in because you can critically think through what makes a good TikTok page. What is your client trying to achieve? Are they trying to grow by numbers? Are they trying to grow revenue? And then, second to that, is emotional intelligence. I always say that clients hire people that they like, not just skills. And so it's really up to you to build trust with your client. That is through having face to face conversations, even if that's by video chat. That is through navigating conversations with empathy, where you make your client feel like they are really heard and understood. These are the things that AI cannot replicate. AI will also never be able to replicate cultural understandings. It doesn't understand slang, it doesn't understand cultural sensitivities. You create the truly original thought, and you wield the tool to help you create it. AI genuinely cannot come up with new ideas because it's only been trained on pre-written data. So you get to approach your clients and your work with your own creativity. You get to determine how to best get a task done. You get to determine what makes a great output, and you get to determine when the goal has been met. So how can you take these AI tools and integrate them with your VA services to become a better VA? These are just 3 ideas that I've come up with. One, you can be the AI integration manager. This is where you find the best tools for your clients, you manage them, you oversee the outputs on their behalf so that they get the maximum value, efficiency, and technology that's on the market these days. And if you're thinking that no one would ever hire a VA to be their AI manager, I want to let you know that I recently pitched 3 clients for me to be their AI manager. And I said, I will help you get your files in order, go through your emails, connect your personal inboxes to your calendars. I'll oversee everything. And all 3 of them jumped at the opportunity. And of course, I did that at an upcharge. You could also pitch yourself as a content strategist. AI can do things like write social media posts for you or blog posts, but you get to develop the content strategies behind the posts. You get to determine which posts drive profit and people to your business or your client's business. At the end of the day, no matter what extent you want to integrate these systems, you need to be focusing on nurturing your human relationships with your clients. People hire people that they like. They don't just hire machines. So it's really important that you invest in things like small talk, communication. Ask your client about their kids, their families, their vacations. Share things about your life, your family. These are the things that creates bonds between humans. Another thing that AI cannot replicate, but something that will build a lasting partnership between you and your clients. So your action plan before the session ends is to explore. Pick at least one AI tool that was mentioned in this presentation and spend some time exploring it. Have fun with it, enter prompts, ask it questions, experiment, discover what it can and cannot do. And then I want you to practice with it. Use it for a real task. It could either be things like drafting an email or summarizing an article or creating social media content, because the best way to learn AI is to learn by doing and practicing. And then finally, as I mentioned, one of the best things you can do is add your expertise to make your prompts even more powerful. I want you to really hone in and think about, what is your special sauce as an assistant? What do you love to do most? Is it social media? Is it planning out podcasts? Is it email marketing? If you have a niche that you're leaning towards, or if you have a particular skill that you're really good at, figure out ways that you can use AI to make that niche even more supercharged. And I want to end with this great quote. The age of AI is not the end of a virtual assistant. It is the beginning of the smart virtual assistant. I firmly believe that AI is not going to eradicate our jobs, it's going to create different job opportunities. And some people, if they are not constantly exploring or looking for new ways to integrate AI, will get left behind. And others, like you and me, will hopefully lead AI and be able to integrate it into our business successfully and continue to work well with our clients. I want to thank you guys so much for sticking with me. This was a jam-packed presentation. I am an AI enthusiast and also a virtual assistant who's been doing this since 2012. You can find out more about me or my programs at erinbooth.com.